novel concept. Maybe we just do a non-funny intro. What do you think?
I think it's novel and
Hey, hey, I said don't talk when I'm speaking. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Robuilt. I'm your host, Rob, and I'm super excited about today's episode. We're doing a retour of my LA tiny house, which I call La Tiny House, and I've got my cameraman back. Last time he was in the saddle, he broke his pinky at the yurt that we were staying at, but he's back, he's healed. Show him your pinky, everybody. Brian, show him your pinky. This is really nice, right? I mean, what? Ow, shit. Damn, that actually hurt. Did you get that? Yes, we got the shot. We got the shot. Not fake. We were actually faked a lot of different shots in the last 20 minutes and that was real. As I said, we're gonna be doing a tour of my LA tiny house. I'm really excited to show you this. Now, if you're a loyal subscriber to my channel, as in like the first 300 people, then you know that I've already actually done a tour of this tiny house. Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. Welcome to another episode of Robuilt. I'm your host, Rob. And I'm not recycling content, but whenever I did that video, I mean, it was literally my third video that I ever reported and recorded. And it was shot on a potato. I had no microphone. It was terribly framed. Everything about that video was very bad. So I just wanted to redo it the Robuilt way and do this tiny house a little justice, because this is really my first big build that I took on as a tiny house builder. And you know, I never really imagined that this could change my life in the way that it actually did. If you're new to my channel, I talk about my tiny places, my unique spaces, and everything in between. I also talk about my Airbnb side hustle, which will hopefully one day become my front hustle. Sprinklers. Oh boy, this is not how I saw today going. Also, I hit 50,000 subscribers and I could not be more grateful. Last month, of the 300,000 people that watched my channel, 85% of them were actually not subscribed to it. So if you like my content, you like what I have to say, feel free to hit the subscribe button and the notification button so that you're notified anytime I release any of my tiny house, Airbnb, Airstream renovation, glamping content. Also, if you want to support me in a small way, feel free to hit the like button or leave me a comment and tell me what you think about the channel. You can also follow me at Robuilt on Instagram. I try to post there as much as I can about my tiny house shenanigans, and I'm also going to be doing an Airstream renovation, so you can follow the journey there. So with that, let's head into the tour. I'm Batman. Actually, before we head inside, I forgot to say, if you're interested in learning how to build a tiny house in Joshua Tree in LA, or anywhere else really, if you're interested in learning how to start an Airbnb business or glamping business, consider booking a consultation. I'll leave a link down in the description below. And if you want to learn more about my upcoming Airbnb and glamping courses, sign up for my course email list. That'll also be linked in the description down below. Okay, now I can go inside. We're inside the tiny house and I really feel nostalgic for this. This is the first thing I ever built. Like I said, I cut my teeth on tiny house building on this house, and I really learned a lot about what to do and what not to do in terms of ergonomics and I guess just proper feng shui. One really big difference that you'll see between this one, which was $72,000, and my $165,000 tiny house in Joshua Tree, California. I actually have a video on that you can check out after this. But I put the front door in my Joshua Tree tiny house right here instead of a window. The front door is actually on the side over here. This is something that I didn't really account for. See, here's the deal with the design process, is that whenever you're actually designing something, you know, it might check the boxes on paper, but once you actually build the space, you actually kind of see how it comes to life. And the way that really affected me in this space in particular, because we put the front door right over here, it actually didn't allow us to put any kind of couch or sectional in the living room. So all we could really put in here was a little bench. Now, granted, I'm sure we could find something else a little bit bigger than this to actually put in here. But from an ergonomic standpoint, whenever we actually put the front door over here, it allowed us to put an entire couch up against this wall. We could even put it up against this wall. We had options in my Joshua Tree tiny house. Again, Not a really huge inconvenience, but if you're living here and you're Airbnb-ing it, it's always nice to have a place to lounge and sit down and relax. If you're on this bench, totally fine, very comfortable, but after a while it does get a little bit tiring. For the most part, this tiny house definitely still works. But again, it's one of those things that when I built this house, I said, hey, if I ever build this house again, I want to optimize it. So that's exactly what I did. Now, if I built that tiny house again, there's even more changes that I would do to it to make it even better. But for the most part, building, learning, designing, all that kind of stuff, I was very green in all of that, but I get better every single day. Now, Now with that, I did still want to provide some kind of common space. So we do actually have a little table right here. This table, I made this joke in my first one, but really spacious, really spacious. I guess we could probably redo this shot, but this is the Robuilt channel and we keep it real. Either way, we have a table here that opens on both sides. We can put chairs on both sides if we ever want to have 4 people in it. It's a smaller space, but it is a tiny house. This tiny house is 300 square feet, so we have to make the best use of space that we possibly can. But that is part of the fun in a tiny house is when there's 4 people in here, I mean, there's not a lot of space. So it's kind of like a Tetris game of figuring out who's gonna stand where, who's gonna sit where, and how creative can you get with hosting 4 people inside of a tiny house. Now with small spaces, you have to make really big sacrifices, but one sacrifice that I did not want to make in my tiny house was the kitchen. I wanted pretty much what I consider a full-size kitchen. Obviously there are much bigger kitchens out there, but given that this is a 300 square foot space, I feel like I really provided a decent amount of like counter space and full-size appliances too. We have a 30-inch microwave, a 30-inch gas range stove, and then we also have a 24-inch, I don't know, is it 24 inches? Yeah, I think it is, yeah. And we have a 24-inch, and we have a 24-inch, what is this called? It's a fridge! A fridge! Samsonite, I was way off.
I knew it started with an S though.
And we have a 24-inch fridge here that makes no sacrifices because honestly, given that it's so compact, it's still pretty spacious on the inside. So I want people to feel like they can cook an entire meal in here. And granted, it is an Airbnb, so I try to supply as much as I can in terms of pots and pans so that people can cook a Thanksgiving meal in here if they want to. Over here, we also have a 20 to 24-inch sink. We have a garbage disposal. Now, one thing that people always get on to me in my Conejo house is that I don't have a dishwasher. Okay, well, you know what? It is a tiny house, so like I said, there are some sacrifices that one must make, but for the most part, you can cook anything you want in here. And of course, I wanted to provide some uppers too with a little bit more additional storage in here, coffee, oils, seasonings, all that kind of jazz. And then again, there's a little bit more storage up here, all of our utensils. We have very, very real plants up here. So as you can see, this kitchen has a lot of thought and purpose that I put into it whenever I was designing it. So let's head inside the bathroom here. Typically, tiny house bathrooms are very, very tiny. Now, this isn't the most spacious bathroom out there, but I did want to provide a full-size shower in here. We have herringbone tile here as the back accent, and then we have kind of a more brown sand-colored Calcutta as the side walls. My style has since shifted since I built this house 3 years ago. This is more of a modern rustic look that you'll see kind of within the home. Now more of a mid-century modern kind of guy, but with that, I'm not sure that I would do a herringbone wood tile shower again, but let me know in the comments down below if this is a yes or no for you. Did it sound like I was out of breath when I said that? No? Okay. So budget was at the top of our mind whenever we were designing this tiny house. So, you know, one way that I did that was by, instead of putting flooring in on the first floor, we did a stained concrete. Stained concrete can cost quite a bit of money if you hire a professional to do it. This is something that me and my cameraman Ryan here did in pretty much one night. And then on the next morning, I came in with a concrete sealer, rolled it a couple of times, and we had a stained concrete floor. Now, given that we were using the foundation to do that, obviously that wasn't gonna carry through on the stairs or the top floor, which is all made out of wood. So we did a gray laminate to complement the concrete floors. And then for the rails, I did a weathered oak. And as I said, I was going for a modern industrial feel in here. So I did cable railing. This was my first attempt at it. I'm not necessarily sure that it meets code, but it does look really, really cool. One of the ways that I wanted to carry through the industrial look was by putting shiplap all throughout the house. I also did that here on the back wall. So you see that kind of runs through the entire kitchen here. And then again, we have the modern cabinets. We have the stained concrete floors. We have our DIY cabling system here. So little touches here and there that I think really made this space pop in a way that I wasn't necessarily expecting. Let's head upstairs. I chose to do a mini split for both this tiny house and my one in Joshua Tree, California. I just think that they're more efficient. I actually like the way they look when they're nice and modern like this one, and they cool down a space within minutes. So I will always probably go with mini splits in all of my builds moving forward. And then over here we have a mirror. If you're vain like me, give me 1 second. We've got a small mirror over here. We have a small dresser right here. And then we have a full-size bed. Now we actually did have a queen-size bed in here previous to this, and it worked. I mean, it totally was fine. But the thing is, it went up right against the wall and kind of served as a day bed. So I wanted to open up the space a little bit, kind of create a little bit of space in between the bed and the wall. And I really think that it opens up the entire room. And then the last thing, as I said, tiny houses come with big sacrifices, but one sacrifice we weren't gonna make was the TV. So we have this 55-inch TV so that when you're laying in this nice comfy memory foam bed, you can watch The Office, you can watch Grey's Anatomy. And also I think my favorite part of this room is the view. You get a small little view of my neighborhood, which is really nice when the sun is rising. And when the sun is high in the sky and it's setting, the light just kind of flows into the room, making it feel nicer, bigger, homier, airier. vibier, and biggier, first and foremost. And then last little thing, I do have a storage closet in here. In here we keep extra pillows, air mattresses, in case, 4 people are staying in this tiny house, which it does accommodate. It does get a little tight in here with 4 people, but I always say in my Airbnb listing, if you're willing to embrace the tiny living kind of movement and mentality, the more the merrier. And that's pretty much the end of our tour. I wanted to just quickly address some of the most asked questions that I have about this house. The number one question being, how much was land? People see the $72,000 price tag. They want to know how much the land was because they think that I'm somehow withholding that information, but really I didn't have to buy the land. I actually own a home here in LA and my lot was 6,000 square feet. So I chose to build what's called an accessory dwelling unit. I don't know if I need the quotes for that. An ADU. And so this tiny house is technically an ADU. I personally think this is the only way to do this. It's unrealistic to build a freestanding tiny house in LA. A lot of people will go to Redfin or Zillow or Trulia, look up land costs in LA, and sometimes they'll find lots that are anywhere from $7,000 to $50,000 in Malibu or in the hills. And if you ever see a piece of land that's that cheap in LA, I would go running for the hills. There's no such thing as a cheap piece of land in LA. I would say that the minimum you're looking at is anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000 for something that's actually buildable. If you find a piece of land in Malibu, for example, and it's on a cliff, you could easily spend $200,000 to $300,000 on a foundation. So I think that if you want to build a tiny house in LA, really the approach to take is buying a house, building it as an ADU. Cost. Now for the cost of this, it was $72,000. I was the general contractor for the build, meaning I pretty much subbed out all of the different jobs and I oversaw it. I did some of the work on the back end of it because I ran out of money and had to kick out my crew. So I had to call a lot of friends for favors that could help me do things like stain the concrete floors, put up the shiplap, paint the house, install the cabinets, the countertops, the laminate. Everything that was on the finishing side of things, I had to pretty much undertake myself. But I'm really happy that I did because I learned a lot about being handy from pretty much building this tiny house. And lastly, I just wanted to quickly cover off on the financials of this. So I actually spent $72,000 total from start to finish. I took out a private loan in the amount of $45,000, thinking that's how much this tiny house was gonna cost to build. Again, I was new, I didn't really understand construction, but I decided to roll with the punches. The $45,000 mark, I ran out. I put in $16,000 of my own personal savings, and then for the last $11,000, I put it on a credit card because I really, at the time, I was 27, I didn't have a lot of options, and had I known, I could have just put it on a 0% interest credit card. But you know what? I had to finish this build as quickly as possible, so I had to make decisions without really thinking about them. All in all, I learned so much from building this tiny house, and I don't regret anything, and it eventually led me to build Casa Conejo in Joshua Tree, and then Casa Mariposa in Joshua Tree as well, which is actually about to be finished. The Airbnb listing is now live, and I'm really excited to share that process with you too. I worked really hard to pay down the debt of this tiny house down to $28,000, but the interest was 7.54% on that private loan. So I just refinanced my house and this house together into a low interest of 3.25%, making my monthly costs for this tiny house around the $200 region. Now my profit on this house is pretty close to $2,000 a month, meaning I can expect to make about $24,000 a year in profit after all expenses on this house, renting it long-term on Airbnb. If you want more information on how much I make on this house and my other tiny house, I'll leave a link right here to a video that I did a couple of weeks ago that goes into excruciating detail about all of my expenses and profits for these tiny homes. And that's pretty much it. I've been considering doing a cost breakdown of this tiny house, which was $72,000, and my Joshua Tree $165,000 tree house to kind of show you what the finish out differences are whenever you have a high budget and a low budget. So if that's something that interests you, leave me a comment down below and let me know. If enough people want to see that, then I'll be sure to do a video of that. That wraps up today's episode of Robuilt. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button. If I glazed over anything important, or if you have any questions about this specific tiny house, let me know down below. But for now, I'll catch you on next week's episode of Robuilt. Have you or someone that you love been hurt by a cactus? Well, the Green Menace is not going to take over this city anymore. Leave a comment down below pledging your... This is so dumb.